Ever found yourself spiraling down a late night rabbit hole of what am I meant to do and why haven't I found it yet? And let's be honest, who hasn't? Then you're in the right place. I'm Teresa White, career clarity expert and 5-time certified career coach, and I'm here to help you navigate the question of how to find a career that truly lights you up. On Career Clarity Unlocked, we're all about those light bulb moments. I'm talking to people who are still trying to figure out what they're meant to do, coaching them live to reach that magical, yes, this is it moment. And we'll also hear from those who've already found their dream careers and figure out exactly how they did it. Whether you're looking for inspiration or actionable advice on finding a career you love, I've got you covered. Time to unlock some career clarity. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Career Clarity Unlocked. If you've ever looked at the state of the world and thought, I want to do something that actually matters, but then immediately spiral into, where do I even start? Then this episode is for you. Today we're going to dive into the messy, emotional, and sometimes overwhelming pull toward meaningful work. Is it real purpose that is calling you, or is it just a reaction to the chaos in the world right now? And what does making an impact even look like in 2026? Does it have to mean nonprofits and NGOs? Or are there way more paths than we've been told? We're going to unpack it all, the doubts, the trade-off, and the possibilities, to help you get a little closer to clarity on what your version of impact could look like. And there is no one better to talk about all of this with than my incredible friend and one of the best coaches I've ever met, Dolores Rio. She's a professional certified coach and former humanitarian leader with 23 years of experience in global public health, supporting frontline response to nutrition crises. After navigating her own career crossroads, she now supports purpose-driven women in social impact careers who feel called to something more but aren't sure yet of what or the how. Known as the Career by Design coach, Dolores blends deep self-reflection with clear strategy, helping women move from confusion to clarity and from hesitation to confident action. Dolores is on a mission to help as many women to lead their careers by design, not just by default. Because she believes that only when we are aligned and alive in our work can we create sustainable careers and lasting impact. Welcome, Dolores, to Career Clarity Unlocked.
Thank you for having me. I've been hoping for this conversation for a long time, Teresa.
Oh, it's such an honor to have it with you. And I cannot wait to pick your brain on all things social impact careers and just work where we can actually make an impact and do something good for the world, because that's literally every conversation I have with people who want to do that type of work.
Oh, I love it. And that's the community I want to serve also
Yes,
in my coaching. Yeah.
exactly. And right now, the conversations I'm having over and over with people at the moment is, right, our news cycle globally is just bad news after bad news. No matter if you're thinking about the climate, wars, human rights violations, there are just so many bad news coming at us. And I was
Mm.
wondering in what way you're thinking about it when you're helping people distinguish what is just despair at this moment and what is a genuine call toward doing different kind of work.
Mm. Yeah. When I think of this question, I'm thinking of different type of professionals and the way they hit them differently, the despair and the genuine call that you're mentioning about. And first of all, I think I would like to say that, well, the despair is real. It's okay to acknowledge it, to feel that emotion, right? It's not just a symptom that because we are watching too much news. It's really there, and it's affecting many of us, whether we are working in social impact, whether we are not working in social impact careers. And I would say that the impact that I see, before I even tell you how we can make a distinction, is that for people who are already in social impact careers, what I'm noticing is that they've been spending their life working for impact. And when they see the world and the state of what's happening right now and things shifting underneath their their ground shifting, it really hit so hard. And it's almost a personal attack to them. Like it's the identity piece. Like, what is going on? And am I really making an impact? And maybe for those who are not,
And
um,
to
uh,
add to that, I'm actually just have a question on that. I would imagine people who are in social impact, they're very passionate about the work they do. And you work so hard and so passionately towards a cause, and then seeing this big backsliding on everything you're working towards, I can just
mm,
imagine how that must lead to burnout or a very
yeah.
different form of despair.
Yes, so I would say burnout is one, but a lot of deep questioning.
Yeah.
Like I entered this career with this idea of impact, and now whether it's a structural aspect that is being dismantled, let's say, or whether it's the world that are having all this trauma facing at us, I would say in social impact areas, you're used to we spend our life thinking about the traumas of the world, right?
Mhm.
It just feels different and more heavy these days because we also have less resources. So how am I going to make an impact and what's going to happen? It's a big identity question.
Yeah.
And to the question of despair versus genuine call, I think I like that because also it makes me think about even the conversations I have with professionals in the careers that are being reactive versus being responsive, and maybe people who are not in social impact, but they're seeing how the world is suffering. There is that, wow, I want to contribute somewhere, right? I want to heal the world, or I want to make a positive change with all that is going on. And I would say that to your question, how do we distinguish that despair versus genuine call?
Hmm.
uh my invitation would be that, hey, that could be, the despair could be a reaction, could be very emotional as much as it is real. And when the world is going to settle, will that pull towards contributing and the healing and being there in social impact, will it still be there? And that's where the genuine call comes in. Because for someone who's really called towards this work, whether we are in a quieter season, I believe there will be spring after this winter, the call will still be there. The desire to go and contribute and make a positive change will still be there. It's not going anywhere. So to me, it's more like what's genuine is that whisper that is the constant thread, whether there is that mega crisis around the world or not, because there
Yeah.
is always a crisis, by the way, in the world somewhere.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think from what I'm seeing is that there are people who have that genuine whisper, but they might have pushed that away for their entire lives of like, well, this is not where the money is, or that's not what success looks like in my family or in my culture.
Mhm.
I want to make a lot of money. My parents told me to become X, Y, and Z, or I went to school for this. Um, but in the back of their head is like that whisper of like, hey, actually, I wish I could make a bigger impact on this world or a different impact. And all these crises we're seeing exploding all over the world right now on a daily basis make that whisper a louder voice. And for some people, even a scream of like, I can't. Before that, we could ignore it. Now it's like we can't ignore it anymore.
Yes, and I think that's valid. That should be listened to and pay
Yeah.
attention to. And maybe you don't have to go too far to
Yeah.
listen to that whisper and make something with it. It can
Yeah.
be just next door.
Right, that's true. And the impact looks different for everyone, right? There's not just, we need all
Yeah,
different kinds of impact, not
yeah,
just one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you were mentioning about I was not, my family was expecting something else or issues of money. And I would say that those type of work, whether it's a local because you do something for your neighbors or whether you go on a mission internationally, there are different forms of impact and different forms of salaries and compensation for it. So
Yeah.
it's everything that is
Yeah.
possible within that realm. And I think it deserves attention if this is really a call inside that you
Yeah.
constantly have.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that. And I invite clients often to think about the impact they want to have in what is the problem you would most want to solve in this world.
Mhm.
And then also thinking about what scale do you feel called to? Do you feel called to making that impact in your immediate smaller circle, your community, in your city, in your state, in your country,
Yeah.
globally?
Oh, I like
Um,
this.
and I
I
feel
like
like
that
people are
question.
drawn to different things. Some people are like, yes, I really want my community to look differently. And other
Yeah.
people feel like, if I want to make an impact, I want to do it at a global organization. So
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
also be a way to distinguish of where you feel drawn to.
The scale is a great question. I love that. And it makes me think of a client who is in social impact, but realize that actually the impact that she wants and she cares about is being a good mom.
Oh,
And that was just the most important thing. And we had to rework even our identity around that because she had been growing with the idea that she needs to create an impact for the country and the world, her country first and then the world. And then she was coming back to that reality that I think if I can raise good humans, I know there would be a ripple effect for the world. And I have to be comfortable with that too. Like embracing that this is where I want to have my
yeah.
impact.
And how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
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 Yes.
We forget that it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be big as much as it matters to us.
Yeah. And if every person in the world would make just that little bit of an impact, what a better
Oh,
place we'd be at.
absolutely. The ripple effect is there.
Yeah. I'm also curious, as we're seeing all these global shifts over the last year or two, how have you been seeing social impact work being reshaped? How is it changing this year
Okay.
and in the current environment?
Um, Reshaped in terms of what we do or how we organize our work is what you mean, right? Like
Yeah, like
because of
overall, for someone who is like, hey, I'm interested in doing social impact work, I would imagine that it looks very different this year than it did look 5 years ago.
uh-huh.
Um,
Okay.
and people might not, or maybe even 10 years ago. And I think people might not understand what is the current reality of that field.
Yeah, okay. Okay. There are so many things to say there. What's coming to mind? I think there are a few things. And maybe I'm going to answer it also a little bit from someone who has been 23 years in the humanitarian system. So there are different dimensions of social impact. And personally, I was more in the humanitarian aspect, meaning emergency crisis response, and there are development things. Anyway, not going into the details. And in a way, for the sector, that sector is not really as much as we are talking about changes, it's not really new that we are having attacks of our human rights, that we're having funding being cut down. It's just that this time, or since last year, especially for the sector, you will remember when the USAID funding was slashed out, and that created a wave. And since last year, it's very different. It's just a continuation of events that is impacting the sector in a way more intensive, critical manner that means rethinking how we do work, rethinking how we do social impact, and actually even the women, the people, the professionals, the men asking for themselves, where else can I create this impact? To the point that we were just mentioning about it can also be local. So for a long time, the impact of the social impact work meant, working with a recognized kind of institution, international NGOs or UN agencies, a foundation. And frankly, this is fragile now. We know it. It's not stable as much as it is great in many ways. And what we see changing, or what I see through the conversation that I'm having with the communities, is that now social impact actions are migrating. It's moving into places that we didn't always look into. Like you will have tech startup in climate, for instance, that are led by people with humanitarian spirits, that this is social impact. The philanthropic world is becoming bigger in terms of having to respond to rapid emergency sometimes, or
Hmm.
grant, at least grant making. Local organization, and there is a whole conversation about localization, so that we can have agile response, integrated response. That is also a new dimension. And the corporate world, I must say, the corporate world is also getting involved in its own way. With there is corporate social responsibility, there is a ethical framework around it. So these are the dimensions that are really emerging, that they were not as present or obvious before, right? So, and that means opening doors to many people, to me, in terms of we can go in different we're gonna have different avenues for impact, more than we had before, I feel.
It's actually beautiful, and it gives me hope to hear you talk about it, because it's, yes, funding is being cut for some very, very important work that has been done and that the world needs. And at the same time, humans don't just be like, okay, now we're not doing that anymore, but humans are finding other ways to contribute. And now there we see for profit, because we need money, right? If we want to make an impact somewhere in whatever form, we need money and resources to do that. But now with social impact tech and everything you just mentioned, it really feels like people are thinking outside the box of like, okay, it didn't work the way we did it before. How else can we make an impact? Okay, let's create this product or this service or this idea that allows us to contribute.
And as much as it is messy, and many professionals right now are really suffering, and my heart goes out to them, it's also an opportunity, frankly, to stretch the way we do social impact and to be more innovative, creative, and use the private sector to do it. Of course, ethically, we have to be clear, like it's social enterprise and B Corps and the kind, but there are possibilities here.
Yeah. You just spoke about these possibilities. Can you shed more light on it? What roles and what opportunities actually exist for professionals outside of the traditional social impact careers?
Yeah, many, all of them. Okay. Yeah, I like this question. It speaks a lot in our world of coaching theories about the questions of transferability of skills and connecting the dots. And I love it because it speaks to that question, but also because the narrative around social impact means non-profit has been also very limiting. Just as now we are saying, hey, you can also do impact in different ways. And the roles are many, from public to private sector, from policymakers, logisticians, health practitioners, operation, admin, HR, you name it. Whatever roles you see in the corporate, you probably have the equivalents in the social impact sector. What you have to think about is that you are using the same type of roles, but it's the purpose, like you're working towards your result is an impact, right? It has to be measured by what impact am I creating versus what money, what profit am I bringing. But if you're sitting with a non-profit role and you're wondering whether there is a place for you, I mean, the answer is really yes, there is a place. And also because the sector, I think, at this point where we are, they need, I believe, I mean, it's probably a perspective that I have right now, and might be challenged by others, but I think that the corporate world will be an added value. People coming from the corporate, coming from another sector, will be a great value add to this sector that needs a little bit of reinvention, needs a little bit of innovation. So we would have such a great opportunity to have new bloods in our organization, new ways of thinking, this way forward, the way we maybe navigate digital integration, maybe we navigate the change that we need to do that others have already done. So there are many, many opportunities to me. And if we're talking about entries, I don't know if you're interested in that in terms of the roles, and what's coming to mind is like, how could you start entering right into that sector from a private world, let's say?
Yeah.
And what would be a transition
for someone going from private to an NGO
come from
or
private? I mean, your skills, I would say your skills are valuable, and it's about understanding where you will really stand out. But there are so many, a natural way would be to, if your organization has that, to go into CSR and corporate sustainability. I would say this is quite an easy entry, staying inside your corporate world, but moving towards the part of it that is trying to do something different with the environmental, social, and government strategies. So it's a framework, again, that is a bit of an accountability framework. So a lot of businesses are having these teams in place. So to me, that's a great move.
Yeah.
And there will be other moves from, philanthropic world, because you know what, they will need skills like financial modeling and operation at scale, and that the corporate might bring that they need. And it's a greater value than us others in social impact would not have. Social enterprise, B Corps, and of course the traditional sector. But there are different entry points, and the values are from the skills or the experiences of the corporate could really be a benefit in the social impact right now because of the restructuring.
Yeah. I'm curious how a hiring manager at a global NGO or a nonprofit organization thinks about when they receive applications from people in corporate. What is their initial reaction? Is there a genuine openness to be like, okay, there is someone who brings value from a different space, but we need that? Or is there like a more of a, if you don't have that specific experience, we don't even want to consider you?
Okay, I cannot be in their mind, but I would say if you lead with your values, and I'm thinking of certain areas like digital innovations, right? And integration. I mean, there is so much need around that. And I would think that many social impact organizations are behind. Then this is the benefit for the organization and for the impact they're going to create with the tools and the setup. So leading with the values that you bring for the organization so that they can create the impact. And of course, you might not have the experience per se, but if you could start, talk about your passion and collect the stories around how you have created impact yourself in your own ways or in your own world. But there are roles that will require more of experience than others, for sure, but there is always a way to stand out through the values that you bring to the organizations, right?
Yeah. And what you just said is actually something I emphasize a lot as well, is lead with the value you bring. And when you're making a career change, it doesn't matter what change, if that is from corporate into nonprofit or NGOs or the other way or somewhere completely different. No matter what, just from one industry to another, from one role to another, you cannot expect the hiring manager to connect the dots from what you've done to what they're looking for. You need to connect the dots for them.
You need to connect the dots, yes.
You need to provide them the so what, right? It's like if you say like, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z and made this impact in this space, the hiring manager is going to be like, okay, good for you. But if you say, this is what I did, and this is how this impacts you, this is how this would translate into your world. And if I were given the opportunity, this is how I see leveraging those skills and making this specific impact. Then they're suddenly like, oh my God, yes, I see it.
Absolutely. And that makes me think of a point, Teresa, like for whoever might be thinking of, well, I'd love to have a social impact move or move into social impact. Having the conversation, identifying the type of role that seems interesting and having the conversation with the people so that you really understand. Teresa, what you're saying brings another thought in terms of whoever is thinking of moving to a social impact areas. Please don't just apply, especially if you have not had that direct experience. It's a different world to some extent, not everything, but have the conversation with the roles that you think would be a good fit for you so that you immediately position yourself as the one bringing the value. Like you understand the problem, you understand where they might be behind and what you bring. The conversations will make a huge difference. And they're willing to.
1000%.
We like that.
And again, that's the same for any change you want to make professionally.
True.
Is You cannot, if you've never worked in this role or in this industry or that company, you cannot assume from just the job description that you really have a full understanding of what they're looking for. So
Absolutely.
having conversations with people internally is the key.
It's
And
the
that
key.
will then also, it gives you such a big advantage in the interview. And also, it prevents you from making a wrong step. Like
Oh my
if you
God,
have a
yes.
conversation with someone in a role that looks like your dream role on purpose, and then you spend 20 minutes talking to them, and you're like, in your body, as they're talking about the day, you're like, oh my God, no, I would not want to do this every day. You just
Absolutely.
saved yourself a big, big, big time and investment of energy and resources that could have gone into making that career change and finding out it's not right for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
will
And then the
definitely
other,
have
what I see
conversation.
all the time as well is the other way where someone's like, "Oh, I don't know if I'd be interested in these roles." And then I encourage them, like, before you say no, like when I make a suggestion, like, consider these roles. Someone's like, I don't know if that'd be right. And like, before you shut it down, can we have one conversation with someone doing the work? And they come back and be like, oh my God, I didn't even know this work exists. This is amazing. They get paid to do what I want to do every day. So it goes both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
completely.
yeah,
Having the conversation opens up even new doors.
yes, 1000%. Now, the
Oh,
biggest question I hear from people almost every day is I'm working right now for a company that I don't feel good about working for. Their values are not in alignment with mine, but I make very good income. I want to do something where I can make an impact, where my work feels purposeful, but it feels like there's always that trade-off of money and income and purpose. And you have to choose one or the two. Do you see that this is a reality or that there are opportunities where there is a good balance of both?
um, are they going to lose everything by moving to social impact, lose their benefits and salaries? I think it's a yes and no answer, Teresa, because the roles and the salaries really vary from you can do charity work, you won't be paid, volunteer, not paid so much, and you can be at executive level. So you can work with local organization, you can work with international organization. And yes, the pay cut might be real, especially sometimes in transition, depending if it's a complete different role or something. But what I also want to say is that the nonprofit also acknowledges that they need talent. They don't need people who don't have expertise and talents, and they come in, they come out, because you don't create an impact when you don't have talents. And when you
Right.
cannot retain your talents, I mean, that's a problem. So they do invest for the results, for the people. And that means they also pay. So the compensation, I would not know exactly the scales. Of course, there would be different cases to explore. But from different reading, it's like maybe you will think of a 10-20% below corporate. But when I think of these questions, I also think, okay, assuming there is a 10-20% below corporate, like I am in my corporate role, it's not aligned with my values, not aligned with my strength. How am I really growing in that corporate world?
Yeah.
Because I might even burn out in the end. I might just not having that growth is just that's my ceiling. While I'm in social impact, I have a little bit less as I enter the social impact might be less, but I am in my element. There
Yeah.
is growth, and I'm also paid more. Like there's no just the trade-off is indeed real, and you have to think about that alignment piece and
Yes.
what it creates. And
Yeah.
frankly, just to say, like when you are working at senior level, even mid-career, and you're interested to work on global issues and willing to travel, that's why the conversations are important, because those roles means internationally you have to travel and take your families and all this. You are well paid. There's no question. I have never suffered. Yes, I did my beginning like everyone, and I was not well paid. I wanted to have my hands dirty, and I evolved and I grew, and I was well paid. There was not a problem for me. My life was good, and we have because of that international aspect of it, we also have other benefits, right? The school, the health, the vacation, more than private sector in America.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
depends where. It's really a yes and no. And
Yeah.
then it depends the longer term, to me,
Yeah.
impact of all this.
What you said is so important, because when we only think about salary, it's really just one component we're thinking of. And by all means, salary is important, right? We need money
Yes,
to
yes, of
live.
course.
That is, I'm not saying that that's not important. But if you're looking at the overall picture and the quality of life, if you look at the quality of life, money is one important component, but then there's also how do you feel? If I think back to when I was in corporate, I was miserable. I was unhappy.
Mm,
All the money in the world would not have made me happier.
yeah,
It might have
that's
made me
true.
gave me temporarily some relief by getting some oxytocin from a shopping trip or something, but it's not the quality of life. So maybe, and I think you're doing a lot of that work with your clients of like, what do you want your life to look like?
Yeah,
What is the financial aspect that is needed, but then what are the other aspects that are needed? The work-life
yeah.
balance, the how you feel about what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Waking up every day and feeling good. It's wealth. Sorry,
Yes,
but
I agree. I
it's
agree.
definitely wealth. Mm.
100%. I'm so curious to hear when you think back about your time and social impact. Is there a moment, there's probably many, but are there any specific moments that stand out where you're like, those are the moments that make all the hard work worth it?
That's a good question. Well, I'm thinking of a few things, but I've been working a lot at the beginning of my career in the field, closer to communities, and I think people who are in social impact will probably relate with what I'm saying. But these were the moments where you feel, wow. I mean, I would never trade that in the world. Also for the enriching experience of the cultures, of the exposure, of the understanding of the world through different lenses, of the appreciation of the human rights and the human to human. And then seeing the work having an impact, like in terms of the policies that you create with the government so that access to healthcare is possible, or just because you were in an emergency crisis, working, for me, it was Darfur, for instance, and trying to set up life savings programs with Doctors Without Borders, whom I love so much. Those moments are they felt you were going to bed feeling exhausted, but feeling, oh, wow, I think we did something today. And they are big moments. I mean, they are hardcore lives, and some do that the entire careers. For me, it was not going to be my entire careers, but there are moments like that that definitely stayed. Yeah.
That just gave me chills as you were talking about it. Going home at the end of the day where you set up the facilities for
Yeah.
the Doctors Without Borders, and you know that it's you're saving lives. You're
Yeah.
literally saving lives, and you're making such an impact on every individual that's going to be impacted by that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is moving. It is
yeah.
a hard life to be in the field, but it is moving, and then you evolve that career into different dimensions. And I would say when you move to the field to more global and you start shifting policy work, this is big too. Like you start putting big policies, big strategies that you know are going to influence the way we are going to treat people. And I'm thinking of children because I worked a lot with children and I worked in nutrition. So when you work on policy work around obesity and protecting children from food that could harm them, or protecting children so that they can receive food so that they don't die on the other forms of malnutrition, which is starvation sometimes, that feels also meaningful.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And when you work on the policy level, it impacts so many,
that's the
countless,
big ripple
countless,
effect.
and
Yes,
future generations as well.
yes,
It's a huge
it
impact
does.
you're having.
Yeah.
if someone is listening to this right now and is like, this is what I want to do with my life, what would you recommend their first step be? Like the first baby step of they're just being really inspired by hearing you talk about this. And maybe it's not specifically the nutrition field, but more of like, I want to feel like this about the work I do, like that level of impact. What's the first baby step that you should be taking today, tomorrow, next week?
Well, frankly, I think we touched on that a little bit, Teresa. It's that honest conversation with yourself, right? Sitting with these question about how do I want, at the end of the day or at the end of my life, what do I want to say about my life or where I want to contribute? And there could be many areas where we think about that big question, where do I want to contribute? What are the problems in this world that I always feel there is always this pull somehow? And I do ask this question a lot to my clients, and it's it varies completely. We are not the same, but there is always that constant thing that comes back. If I could contribute somewhere, this is the way I would do it. This is always something I read about. This is always I could go in the street and stand for. So just to notice that, and then exploring what the world of social impact, what would be a match, and then the conversation. Really, it's just start here, be honest with yourself. What's important here? What's the tension where you are that is making you think of that? What are the roles? And have the conversation. And there is basically, one thing I could actually have your audience live with. And it's interesting because just before I came and speak with you, I had a message from someone on the DM telling me that she tried that question and that she sees something is shifting. And there's very often this question I ask is that if you were to describe your ideal career, which is a very general question, how would you describe it using the 5 Ps? I don't know if it's something that you've heard of, this 5P framework. The people you want to work with, the places you want to, what type of places, the pace, the purpose, and the proficiency, the strength you want to use. When you start reflecting on that, you have a bit of a career manifesto. And underneath that, you start noticing your values, your needs, your strength. And I would say that's a good starting point because you're able to notice what's aligned and what's not aligned with where you are now. And if it's not aligned, what does it mean? Mm-hmm. Can I realign within?
Yeah.
Or do I really have to look outside?
I love this, Dolores. And it also is such a great diagnostic tool because maybe you realize 4 of those areas are aligned, for example, but the people area is not aligned. That doesn't mean then you need a complete career change, but that can mean like, okay, I need to work in a different team.
Yeah.
Or another area is totally misaligned. Like you actually love the environment you're working in, but you're not using your strength. You're not stepping into your full potential. So that leads us in a completely different direction. So love this. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, welcome.
And one more question I have for you, and that is a hypothetical future question. Now, maybe this is just me, the optimist in me is like, okay, we're seeing a pretty significant swing into backsliding on things we were working hard. I just believe to my core that we're going to see just as big of a swing forward after this. That this is us catching momentum to really swing into the other direction. Okay. I don't know if you share this optimism, but where do you see future demand? In what spaces? When we think about all the ways we can make impact in the next 5 to 10 years, where are the fields you feel like there is going to be real demand and people need to be paying attention to this and we need people stepping into that space?
This is big. And I share your optimism. I just want to think as well that after winter there is spring.
Yes.
And we just have to survive or navigate or even embrace the possibilities that comes with the winter. This is big because so you might be familiar or not. When you think the SDGs that ring a bell for you, the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have a target for 2030. So we are coming close to that. So we are going to have another day, the world is going to have another discussions about that. But when you think of those 17 goals and that were adopted in 2015, and it's all around making the world a better world, like it's kind of a universal blueprint around eradicating poverty, reducing inequalities, improving health, education, economic growth, climate. I will not think that in 4 years we're going to be in a good place. So the work still remains. And I'm saying that because just to say that, wow, the priorities are so many when you talk about addressing human rights in the world. And, every sector, every work is important. What I am seeing, however, in terms of common theme that are seriously emerging right now, that I think we all need to pay attention moving forward because there's going to be more and more demand, is around climate.
Yeah.
I know it's not the opinion of everybody, but the world is moving towards those conversations more, and opinion of everybody, or certainly not every country supporting it. But those conversations are real. The repositioning of the work that we do is real in terms of around climate.
Yeah.
So our program and thematic and technical areas are being absorbed around that.
Yeah.
So that's very true for the focus of the future.
Yeah.
Another area to me that remains very important, education is big, but I would say also healthcare. Education is big, will always be big, in my opinion. And I'm thinking as if we're to also pay attention is access to healthcare. The cost of health is too big. We have the technology and the equity around it, but the systems that need to be in place, that will continue, in my opinion, the financing around it. Another area which maybe would be, since I stepped out, I'm not as familiar in terms of where are we at in this area, but I think will be critical. And certainly people who are in the tech area will have a value add, is around AI and accountability and responsibility. This is a space that is growing really fast, and people are really hungry with the H, to bring the human right lens to it, right? We've got to use it for the good of people and not against it. So it's so new, it's so fresh, it needs that. And it's an opportunity to make sure that we are doing it right. And other areas, there is I'm hearing, concretely speaking, I'm hearing my peers, I still have conversation with them when we talk about funding cuts. And I'm like, so what are you going to do in terms of prioritization? Well, we are going to prioritize life saving. So we've got to have this ability to respond and to help the countries to respond to crises and emergencies and prepare for them. Because if we don't have money for other activities, then at least we've got to save lives. So that remains important. But it's a hard question for me because, frankly, I think of governance and diplomacy. I mean, this is so big to me as well. But climate, AI, health and education, and innovation with financing, so that we tap into the private sector. And there, the corporate world brings things that social impact professionals don't have as much in terms of the sales, the business perspective. That's big. There's big value there.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. And doubling down on the AI safety, ethical use of AI, how can we all benefit from it? How can not the 0.1% class of billionaires benefit from it, but how can every single human on this planet benefit from it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
AI can, it blows my mind that we can fly around the moon or to the moon, but we cannot feed every human who lives on this planet.
Oh, yeah. And we can talk about trillionaires to come, while these could feed everybody and therefore bring health upward, bring education upward, and with that, more peace. I mean, we have to think of all those ripple effects.
Yeah. And as you were saying it, what came actually to my mind was actually the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that pyramid, because you talked about climate first. And sometimes there's the argument, right? Like, shouldn't we take care of the people first before we take care of the climate? And all of it is important. Like, it's hard to put anything above anything. But when we think about the basic needs of food, water, and shelter, food and water, that's the climate. If we don't have the climate, that this planet depends on, we have no food and water.
Yes, so we don't want to think of climate as the NGO, green, whatever, like the green agenda. It's not that we're talking about. We're talking about financing of climate issues because
Exactly.
climate has an impact on so many things, on violence too. If I'm
1,000%.
starving, I'm sending on sexual violence, I'm sending my girls to make money because I don't have food at home. The impact is huge. So it's climate that embraces different components that we are addressing through that big umbrella, right?
Thank you for sharing that. My deepest hope is that there is a blessing in disguise coming out of all of this, and that we're kind of in this little snow globe right now that got shaken up and everything just feels so chaotic and disorganized right now. But that in the end, we're going to come out in a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. This was such amazing. I could talk to you for another 5 hours and pick your brain. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And where can our listeners find more and learn more about the work you do and follow you?
Yes, well, your listeners can actually find me on LinkedIn. This is where I'm the most active. My website is down currently, up soon, so not necessarily where to go immediately, but LinkedIn, I'm there. They will hear me share and speak. And if anyone is considering to move into social impact, I have clarity calls to also help them understand, hey, what's not working, to make, the differentiation. Is it really a call or a reaction to the world? And that is also available on LinkedIn, the links and everything.
That is beautiful. And the work you do is so impactful and important. And we'll make sure to link your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so everyone can follow you. And a huge thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. It was a pleasure.
I love this conversation, and I hope you did too. And if there's one specific thing to take away, for me it is making an impact doesn't have to fit into a one-size-fits-all box. And it definitely doesn't have to look like anyone else's version of success. Whether your impact is global, local, or even within your own family, what really matters is that it feels aligned with who you are and what you care about. And if that quiet whisper has been getting louder lately, maybe now is the time that it's worth listening to. And if this conversation got you thinking about your own career and where you might want to go, please join me for my free masterclass, Start Your Career Change in 3 Simple Steps, where I walk you through my proven framework of how to make a successful career change without starting over or taking a pay cut. The link to that is in the show notes. And of course, don't forget to join me again next week for another episode full of insights, inspiration, and actionable advice on finding a career you love, because you shouldn't and you definitely don't have to settle. Please keep chasing what makes you come alive, because what the world really needs, especially at this time and especially in this day and age, is more people who have come alive. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Career Clarity Unlocked. If you're feeling stuck in that what's next spiral and are ready to finally break free, let's chat. You can book your free Career Clarity call where we'll uncover what's really important to you, tackle any obstacles holding you back, and map out your best next step. Schedule your free 30-minute call today on careerbloomcoaching.com. And before you head out, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. If today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration, please leave a review. It really helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or on social media. Your support truly means the world. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.